everybody, I'm Tom Vassell.
I'm Joey Evans.
I'm Zee Garcia.
And today we're taking a look at Wild Tile West.
Wild Tile West.
So Wild Tile West. That's the wrong beat. I don't know where that beat's coming from.
It's the only beat I do.
That's Men in Black.
Wild Tile West is from Dire Wolf. You may have heard of Dire Wolf because they did Dune Imperium and Clank. Those are their two biggest games. So whenever they put out a game, you know it's going to be pretty good production, and it's probably going to be a solid game. This is a polyomino game of which there are more than a few.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, a lot now.
Crowded playing field.
It also has animals doing stuff, which
Wild
is
Tile
more than a
West.
few
What?
doing that now. And the West. Anyway, let's see a good explanation of the game right now.
Oh, thank you.
First, let's take a look at the scoreboard and the round tracker here. The players are going to be keeping score around the outside, and then you're going to be playing over 4 years. Each year is broken down into, at the beginning of each year, we have some income where the players are going to be getting some gold nuggets, and then a few rounds of drafting. So you'll be drafting tiles in each of these, the arrows and that first one as well. And then at the end of that year, when we make it to there, we are going to compare bandits, and whoever has the least bandits is going to get 2 victory points, then 3, and so on. They also get a new bandit, however, and then whoever has the most is going to lose some victory points. Then we go to the next year, and the players are going to get their income again and do some more drafting 4 times, and so on until the end of the game. Down here, we've also got some bonuses and victory points for wrangling cows. The number at the top is how many cows, so say 5 cows in a group. You can wrangle them if you want to. You're going to get 6 points. And then you also get a bonus, in this case 2 bullets. The first player to do it is going to get the better bonus, then it flips over, and from now on it's a worse bonus for the rest of the game. So that's that. Let's take a look at the tiles you're going to be drafting during all of these drafting rounds. During each of those drafting rounds, we're going to be rolling dice, the number based on the number of players. So this would be for 4 players. We're going to be rolling all of those, and we're going to be placing them in the corresponding spots. If they are a blue die, they go on the river spots. So the 2 would go there, the 4 would go down here, and then the other ones go on the numbered sides. So we've got 12 right there, 14, and then 16 would go right there. And now, starting from the start player, we are going to be drafting. So on your turn, you are going to select one of these dice, and you're going to take the first tile in from where that die is. So for example, if the first player wants to, they could take this tile, and then they remove the die, and they will place this tile on their player board, which I'll show you in a minute. If something is fully gone, and they select that, they'll just take the first one in place. They'll be aware some tiles do come with a cost in gold nuggets. On the rivers, which is over here, you are allowed to skip tiles, and you can pay a gold nugget to do so. So if this player, whoever's drafting the 4, does not want this tile, they'd rather have this one, they can pay 1 gold nugget to skip it, and then take that one and put that on their player board. You see quite a few symbols out here. There are generally 3 different kinds of things. We've got the farmlands with the cows, the fields, such as this over here. We've got the sort of just regular dirt or land, and you see some bandits, you see some sheriffs out here. You see some playing cards for bonus scoring. And then we've also got some buildings which have a banner with a name. They come in a few different colors. They have immediate abilities, such as the fancy saloon here or the sheriff's office there. Those happen once. We've got red buildings, which are going to do something when they are completely surrounded. We've got the always on abilities on the yellows, and then we've got these pink ones or purpley, and those are going to be end game scoring whenever you have those on your board. Let's take a look at what a player board looks like, and then you'll have a decent idea of how the game works. The game comes with a whole slew of player boards, as you can see here, and you are going to select one of them. In fact, all the boards are also double-sided, having one side with some special scoring abilities, such as this side has these signpost abilities and some signposts out here. None of the other boards would have this. It's your choice which side you play on, though they do recommend the basic side when you are learning the game. So we'll take a look at this one here. You'll see quite a few features. Whenever you take the first tile, it must go over this X. And after that, every tile has to go adjacent to another tile. Or through connected tiles, you can go next to one of these. So for example, if my first tile is there, my next tile could go across this through that one and be placed there. When you complete these darker blue areas, you're going to get bonus points, plus some bonus points above and beyond that if you do it early in the game. Whenever you cover up one of the symbols on the board here, you're going to get that thing. The pickaxes over here are going to elevate you on your gold board, which is one of these. You're going to start with a token down here, and every time you cover one of the pickaxes, you'll move up. This is what denotes your income at the beginning of each year. And once you make it up here, you get another bonus character, which I'll give you a look at in 1 second. Eventually, you go up high enough, not only do you get much better income, but you also might get some bonus points as well. If you cover up the bullets, you'll get bullets. If you cover up these alleys, as they're known, you'll get to put out a token, which is a one-space token anywhere. And then the gold nuggets will give you gold nuggets as well. You've got already some bandits pre-printed on there and some cows. So as you are building up these groups of cows, like I said, I'm allowed to do that on the very first turn. As soon as I wanted to and I added some cows, I can choose to wrangle them. The amount of cows in there is going to be what gives me a number of victory points, as I showed you on the scoreboard already. And once it's wrangled, you'll put a token on it, and it can no longer be wrangled. In fact, if you add to it any other cows, you cannot wrangle those anymore. Whenever you choose to do it, that section and anything that attaches to it is done. So that's one thing you are doing. Some of the other different symbols, the sheriff, for example, if you have a sheriff, that sheriff is going to be allowed to use bullets to shoot bandits. But you have to do so in a straight line, not going through any mountains, not going through any cows. So if I can get enough tiles to eventually put this right here, then this sheriff could shoot that bandit. You'll need to have a bullet, of course, which is one of these bullets here. And then you will place it on that bandit as a tombstone, like so, and it'll be worth some points at the end of the game. So that's what you're doing, growing this board, filling it in. These horseshoe symbols, you want to cover those because each one still revealed at the end of the game is going to be -1 victory points to your final score. And speaking of score, you're also going to get points for any buildings with the pink signs. You're going to get 2 points for every tombstone. The aces that you've collected, you'll get points for having sets of those, sets of the same or sets of different ones. Mining is going to get you victory points, as you saw. And then any partners you have are going to get you victory points. So these are the partners. At the beginning of the game, you're going to get 2, and you'll pick one to keep. And then if you hit that spot, you'll get 1 more that you may choose from 3 revealed, or you can just top deck one. And these are going to have various abilities that let you score in the game. So, for example, the judge over here, a sheriff alive in each town. Towns being these blue areas again. If that's true in 3 towns, you'll get 5 points, 12 in 4 towns, and so on. If you cover up your bonuses so that there are none left, you'll get points with that. Keeping out bandits with the marshal there. You could have the developer there. If you completed towns and or you have town halls, you'll get points from that. And so on, having cows from the rancher, what have you. So there's quite a few of these, and you have at most 2, and you'll be getting bonus points from that as well. Whoever has the most points at the end of the game, of course, is the winner.
All right, so this game, the production value, like I said at the beginning, really cool. I love the fact that you pull out the game and it's ready to play. The only problem is they have like a triple layered board to put those tiles in.
Yep.
But to make it work properly, the tiles themselves are a little thinner. Not a huge thing, but they had to do that, or else if the tiles were thick, the board would just be gigantic.
Yeah. I found that not to be problematic. They did not move around on me or anything. They didn't go flying on the board. It was fine. I had a good time. My actual problem with that is, while it's great to set it up and be ready to go, and it really is fantastic to put them away. They stack so that they hold the bottom ones in. Wonderful. But you need to make adjustments for player counts, except for 4 or 5. 4 or 5, you don't need to pull any tiles. But for any other player count, you need to pull tiles, and it's tedious. It's a little bit of a sting when you're like,
it is.
Look at how wonderful this is. Oh, 3 of us? You need to pull at least 20 tiles out.
Yeah, that gets tedious, that part right there.
So,
Yeah, now as far as the production, I love the boards, and at the bottom, how it shows a picture of the tile that goes there. I mean, really, you're just backloading all your setup because you're resetting up for the next game. But there's something nice about bringing those tiles out and saying, we're going to play. People are like, it's so easy, yes.
agree.
But
No,
hang
it's
around at the
nice.
end. We had to put this back.
I did play a game with one guy who bumped the table and then didn't know where all his pieces were.
Oh, really? Okay.
Oh, really?
Okay.
On the board?
But I
mean, that
think
would have
that's
happened
more
with-
on him.
That would have happened with thick tiles anyway, too, really, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
What'd you think about the art and the iconography?
I think the art is good, and I think the iconography also is pretty solid. It works well. I mean, the only thing I have an issue with, and I guess this is graphic design, I don't like that the towns on the board, the little sort of outline, again, polyomino towns, they're kind of a similar color to the outside of the towns. You can tell them apart, but they're kind of similar. But there's no good way to tell where it stops and starts once you've covered them up. And unfortunately, several of the characters, assistants, what are they called? Whatever, the people you can, have.
Partners, yeah, your
Partners, that's
yeah.
it. Several of the partners reference the towns. They're like, if you have a bandit in town, I'm like, I can't tell anymore. I covered it up.
And I can see that at first when you mentioned that, I didn't. I mean, when you look at the board, it's obvious. There's dark blue and light blue.
When you start, yeah.
But then at the end, when you have one little square in the corner that's next to a mine, you might be like, I got to compare that to here. Is that in town or not? And I see what you're talking about as far as that.
I never forget because my whole goal is covering up those towns.
That's hard to
Go
do,
for that
though.
quickly.
Yeah.
One thing I really love about this game, and it's such a silly little thing,
Oh, I know what this is.
but the fact that the bullet turns into a tombstone,
That's so fun.
I just love that. I don't know why.
cute.
It's so dumb. And yet you're like, when I teach it, every time I say it, everyone's like, oh.
It really is one
Yes.
of those things that gets you, yeah.
And it's one of those things you can see from across the table. Because I think I was playing with Z, and I'm like, man, I have all these bandits. And I look over and Z's just killing everybody. I mean,
Yeah.
there's all these tombstones sitting up there. I'm like, I mean, it's really a cool little mechanic that you just take it, floop.
It's cute. It's cute.
It is.
Now, a couple things. It's again, the game gives you a lot of options, and I think after you play it once, you probably, to me, I would always play with the special boards. I
Always.
like having a town I like having some unique feature to my board, but I can see playing the other way. I'm just saying my preference would be those boards. There is some rules overhead. Like, for example, one of the characters says, hey, you get to start with one of these buildings. Great, says new player. What do those 4 buildings do?
Yes.
And it's the buildings. The buildings are cool, but while the iconography makes sense in retrospect, there is some overhead. There's a
Yes.
lot of special buildings.
There is.
A lot of different things. And sometimes you can get caught up in the weeds going, oh, because a lot of polyomino games are like, here's 2 things to do. This has like 5.
Yes.
You want to
Right.
make groups of cows. You want to kill people. You want to cover towns. You want to surround buildings.
Cover
you want to get
symbols.
money and cover symbols. And so and you want to cover as much of the board as possible.
Yes.
And while I think that's good, I think this is a step above a entry-level polyomino game.
For sure.
I agree with that. It's one of those rules that you read at the beginning. When you're first learning it, you're like, this is so overwhelming. And it's like, I mean, but then it's simple to wrangle a pasture. You said it on there. But when you go through it, it's really like, wait, what? What? But then at the end, it isn't easier. But it's harder to get your mind around all those little rules. But they do make sense by the second or third play.
There are, I mean, as far as the advanced sides, I'm glad they're in there, but I don't agree that I'm going to default to them from now on, now that I know how to play. I like the simpler side, but I appreciate the options being there. And they're all different. Though if you are starting a new game like you've never played, don't use them. Just go for
Oh,
the
no,
basic side.
I agree on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say, I think there's a couple of rules that I thought were more complicated than they needed to be. And that's always one of those things that stings me a little bit. Mainly in this one, it would be the sheriff rules. The way the sheriff, or the lawman, shoots the bandits, there are more rules there than I would have appreciated. It's like they have to be in line with them. Cool, great. And you could have stopped there.
Right.
But no, it's like, but also you can't shoot
Over
through
hills.
mines or mountains or cows. It's like, but if there's a bandit on a mountain and it's the very first mountain you see, you can shoot them. Like, stop. You've complicated it too much. It should be, is this guy in the row or column was my bandit? I shot him. That's it. You're abstracting all this other stuff anyway. I don't need you then to put realism back in because, well, you couldn't shoot through a cow. Let's pretend I can.
Yeah.
Okay? You know what I mean?
Tinny's
It's
like
one of
this,
those-
not like this.
It's like one of those
Yeah.
rules that I'm like, it's in there for realism in some ways.
Right.
But the rest of it is nonsense. So just go with, an abstraction of what my sheriff can do. I'm not assuming he's standing in a spot and can't move either.
Right.
You know what I mean? So that I would have simplified.
Yeah, and that didn't bother me as much. The asymmetric thing, I will tell you, as far as the back of the cards you're talking about.
The boards, yeah.
Yeah, the boards. I don't know the balance on those. I think they're balanced, but I also think that each one has a way that they're trying to drive you to go with that particular board.
Sure.
Because I remember I flipped it.
kidding.
Well, yeah, but I mean, there was one time I was like, you get 2 general stores, and it was really one of those, you got to read it. So it's not a first play. I've tried it the first play. I agree that those should be later plays. But that does make it more interesting for me.
Now, one thing that it does do to help new players is the dice mechanism. You can't take any tile on the board. You can take from the dice selection.
Right.
Now, the dice selection is going to be a blessing and a curse. The blessing is, hey, it makes it easier. You'll be like, okay, you can pick from these 4 tiles.
Cool.
The curse is, those are only the 4 tiles. I'm like, I'm collecting cards. I can't get any cards. Well, you can if you pay 4 gold to go down the river, and I don't got that kind of money.
Yes.
So I like that mechanism actually a lot to some degree, but there have definitely been games I'm like, will someone roll a 17?
Yes.
You know, please.
Yes.
It also doesn't scale down super well, I think.
Right, I agree.
Because when you are playing with 4 people, which is what I did in the overview, you've got 2 river dice, 3 of the other dice, the pasture dice. You know, if you're playing with 2, there's 1 river die and a couple of the other ones. You don't have a lot of options. You'll always, at most, have 3. 1 of them river only. So yes, while there are turns in which you are last and have, you know, the leavings, you will also make up for that by being first sometimes and be like,
Right.
the world is my oyster. I can take whatever I want to. So
This is one of the few games that plays better, I think, with more people.
I agree,
it
which is a
does.
rarity.
4, I think, or 5 even is the sweet spot.
Yep.
All right, what would you give it?
I'm going to come in at a 7.5. I also should mention I played solo, and it's a solid solo mode. Very fun, easy to implement, works really well. So I like that, and I recommend it for solo play. I have a couple of issues with it, most of which I've mentioned already. One of them, which I haven't mentioned, is I think the partners, I wish were more interesting. I thought the partners are kind of, many of them I thought,
Similar?
I don't like that. Not even that they're similar, they're just sort of uninteresting things they're checking for. Many of them, actually a couple of them I saw, was like, for having bandits in towns, dead or alive. And I'm like, I looked down at my board, I'm like, I can't tell anymore, pal. I mean, I covered it. You know what I mean?
Well, with tombstones.
Well,
he's-
but if they're not dead, I don't know where they are. No, I mean, even if they have tombstones or not,
They're
it says
covering
dead
the
or
town
alive.
area.
But I don't know if it's inside a town.
Oh, I see what
you're
saying.
covering
I see
the
what
town
you're
area.
saying.
Covered
Okay.
it up. I'm like, I can't tell where the edge was anymore
Yeah.
of the town, you know? There's one that did the same thing for sheriffs. I'm like, again, I can't see that. And a few others that I just found uninteresting. But I
Right.
still liked it. I still think it's a very good polyomino game. Like, again, if you've played a couple of these games and you want something a little more robust, this is good for that. This is going to give you that feeling of playing with the shapes, but lots to think about, you know?
Right.
So it's solid. I don't love it, but I really, really like it. 7.5 for me.
All right, I'm coming a bit higher. I'm coming at an 8. I like polyomino games, like Tenpenny Park, things like that. But majority of them, there's not enough meat to them. You know.
Yes.
So I think that fits a niche there. That there's a lot going on, a lot of strategy, especially when you introduce the asymmetric abilities in the back. That you've got to kind of change your gameplay. It won't work here. That works here. So that type of synergy I really like, and as a rarity. When polyomino normally at their core have fewer rules. I do like this game a lot. The production value is great. Artwork is good. You know, I really like the artwork, but I think it's a really great game.
I'm also giving it an 8. Production, great. I love the theme, and I think the theming comes and works in the game. Sheriffs are shooting bad guys. You're getting groups of cows. The bank gives you money.
Yeah.
And the art, all that ties together. And, you know, they do a good job at that. They've always done a good job at
Yes.
Dire Wolf at saying, hey, it's a solid game, also fun theme. Now, I don't think this reaches Dune, Imperium, and Clank. Those are like amazing games.
Right.
This one is very good, which, you know, that's knock against this. But I will say, I think off the top of my head, it's probably in my top 10 polyomino games.
Yep, I agree.
There's a lot about it that I really like, and I think it stands out. Because nowadays I play a lot of polyomino games, and I go, that was solid. And then later on, I'm like, that was one of that group. I'll remember this one.
Yeah.
I'll remember this one. Hey, that's the one you roll dice and surround buildings and shoot guys.
Right.
Yes,
So-
I agree.
Well, there you go, folks. That's Wild Tile West. I'm Tom Vassell.
I'm Joey Evans.
I'm Zee Garcia.
Keep those bandits down.
Make them
Wild Tile West.
tombstones.
Wild Tile West.